Hi, and welcome to PNCFL 2021. My name is Alicia Holmquist Posner, and I teach German at Enumclaw High School in Washington State near Mount Rainier. We're about an hour away from Seattle, and I have been taking my students on virtual field trips for the past year since we have not been able to travel in real life. And so today I'm going to be telling you about how I do that. So this presentation is called Around the World in One Class Period, Designing Virtual Field Trips for Use in the Foreign Language Classroom. Even though I teach German and most of my examples will be in German of the field trips that I have created, I'm going to be presenting in English today, and I have some examples of virtual field trips in Spanish and in French. But really, you can adapt any of my ideas to any language. So happy to have you here today, and I hope you learn a few things. At the end of my presentation, I do have a QR code for you to use with your phone's camera or your QR code reader so that you can get this presentation and access the links in it. But that's coming at the end of the presentation. So you have to sit through this whole presentation in order to get there. So sorry about that. Good. So like I said, my name is Alicia, and I'm really looking forward to telling you about how I do virtual field trips. In this presentation, we're going to talk about why they're important. Where do we want to go? What do we want to learn? What do we want to do when we get there? What our itinerary will be, as in what kind of questions are you going to ask, and the nuts and bolts of those questions. So how do you do it? What kind of questions are they specifically? Are you going to be asking open-ended questions, multiple choice questions, that kind of thing? And then I'm going to end with some examples and resources. And like I said, there's going to be a QR code there so you can actually access that. So why are virtual field trips important? Well, the first thing that I thought of was my very favorite quote. This quote is from St. Augustine. He says, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only a page." I have been traveling with my students for the last 8 years. I've been teaching for 8 years. In my very first year teaching, I had an exchange trip that I took over. And so I've been on 3 exchange trips with students, and our 4th trip will be next year. We have an exchange town in Germany, Egenfelden. It's in Bavaria, in Bayern. And I've taken anywhere between 15 to 25 students there. We go every other year. The benefits of traveling as a teen, I know it's expensive, but it really hones their problem-solving skills. It helps with their critical thinking. It teaches them to budget with money, not only to earn the money to take the trip, but also when we're over in Europe. It breaks down stereotypes. It broadens their horizon. There's really just nothing that we can say that would be bad, except for the cost. The cost is something that is a hindrance. And that's why virtual field trips might be an awesome way to go when you can't afford to travel. So this is still a type of traveling. Another word that popped into mind when I was thinking about virtual field trips was Wanderlust. It's a German word that is like the desire to travel. I have Wanderlust like crazy. And I know that a lot of my students also have Wanderlust. And when we can't travel in real life, it's cool to be able to offer them this glimpse into another culture and give them a taste of travel, even though we're stuck here now in lockdown, actually, or, with the pandemic. But in normal times, it would just be, if you can't actually travel. I've had students who are also, they can't come with me on the trip because they have basketball camp or something. This also affords them an awesome time to see other places. So why virtual field trips? Can't bring your students to the world and bring the world to them. Exposing them to the target culture. That means, for me as a German teacher, German culture, Austrian culture, Swiss culture, Liechtensteinian culture. I have a virtual field trip in the works for Liechtenstein. If you're a Spanish teacher, think about all the different countries you can go to and expose them to. Open their minds, bring in new perspectives, especially for people who, like me, teach in a smaller town. This is the way that some of these students get to see the world. It's free. That's the number one thing. It's free. Of course, it costs your time to create this, unless you are able to find something already created that works for you. And a really cool, even though I do mine in English, because this is purely about the culture, purely about getting to know another country. I do mine in English, but I also sometimes throw in vocabulary so that I can build that up. So I'll show you some examples of that towards the end of my presentation. So that's why I'm way into virtual field trips. Where are we going? This is one that you really have to think of ahead of time. A virtual field trip is basically just a web quest or a scavenger hunt online. We're calling it a field trip because we're going to learn about another place, another culture. So for me, it made a lot of sense to have virtual field trips to cities. So the types of virtual field trips I've had so far would be like Berlin, Vienna, Zurich. We've done Munich. You could also do a country. For example, I'm going to be doing a virtual field trip on Liechtenstein. Maybe if you're a Spanish teacher and you have so many different countries to cover, you could do one on Spain, Mexico, Venezuela, that kind of thing. You could do different countries. I've also done virtual field trips about zoos. I have a virtual field trip to the zoo in Munich. And basically it's like a web quest. For me, the virtual field trips, that's an umbrella term for all of these things. You could also do events. I have a virtual field trip on Oktoberfest, which is a festival in Munich. You could do any type of festival or a holiday, a virtual field trip revolving around Christmas or Easter or whatever is important culturally to the target language that you teach. Maybe it's not even anything like a festival, a holiday, or a concert. Maybe it's about lunches around the world. It could be something as simple as that. And do a virtual field trip. What do they eat in Japan for lunch? How does it look when they go to clean up? Do they help in cooking? That kind of thing. It's basically just thinking about what do we want our students to learn about? What do they what specific aspect do you want them to leave the virtual field trip knowing about? You could also do ideas. I asked students for more ideas on what we should be doing virtual field trips for, and I expected and got a lot of city ideas. But one student said, the school system. They wanted to have a virtual field trip on the German school system. Or you could talk about politics. Or if you're an English teacher or if you're teaching a novel, maybe the setting. You don't have to be confined just to cities. Or maybe you're doing national parks. You could visit the Great Barrier Reef. You could visit and do some sort of like herbology, types of different plants. Like the possibilities are endless and it's super cool. I've also done art virtual field trips. We've visited museums in Germany. That's really cool because Google has Google Arts and Culture, and they have specific museums on their website, also specific artists, and you can see their whole body of work, and it's actually set up really cool for students to navigate. So maybe you want to look at singers, artists, art movements. For example, I've done this before with the German art movement, Die Blaue Reiter, the Blue Riders, and that's pretty cool too. If you have no ideas, let your students tell you where you want to go, where they want to go, and how they want to do it. You could also assign this to them, have them make their own virtual field trip. Why not? Have them do the work for you. If they each get a different city, then it's done. But don't turn off my presentation yet because you want to know what kind of questions to lead them with, yeah? So how are we going to get there? My students complete this on Google Forms. I'll be showing you some Google Forms at the end of the At the end of the presentation, some of my examples, you could just as easily give them a hyperdoc, which is just either a Google Doc or maybe a Word doc or any sort of document where you are plugging in a link for them that takes them to a page where they can find the answer. It's basically, like I said, it's just basically a scavenger hunt. Or if you're using Canvas or Schoology or anything like that, you could always just as easily post one question. There's no rule that says that the virtual field trip has to be 10 questions long. It could be one question. It could be 3 questions. It could be something just as easily as that. So I use Google Forms. I find that to be the easiest way. We're a Google school, and so obviously that works best for me. I post it into the module that I give every week, which is just a slide deck that has our lesson on it. And I post a picture and it says the name of the destination, and then I link the Google form to that picture. It says, grab your passport, we're going to, and that's all that is. You could use Google Tour Creator. Some of you might be familiar with that. I've used that once before when I was teaching English and we read To Kill a Mockingbird. So I had a Google tour of their hometown in that book. But here's the thing, Google is taking that away and it won't be feasible anymore after July 2021 to use Google Tour Creator. So even though that seems cool and you'll find resources for it still, Google's taking it away. So it's probably a good idea to steer clear of that. Once I decide where we're going and how I'm going to get us there, like Google Forms for me, for example, then the first place I go to is Wikipedia, truthfully. I go to Wikipedia, I read up and find out, hey, is something here interesting to me or to the students? Wikipedia is the first place I go to because I just want a general overview. I've lived in Vienna before. I still went to the Wikipedia page to see what they said about it. You could also use the Wiki Travel page. But I still learned things about Vienna that I would not have had otherwise thought of if I hadn't gone to the Wikipedia page. If you don't want your students going to Wikipedia, then check the resources at the bottom of Wikipedia. And then you can click into a new page, a new website where they got their resources and use those as your links, which is pretty cool. You can go to the official website of the city. I often take my students there on the virtual field trips because there's great information there. They're often also in English. Depending on the level of your students, you're going to want to do your virtual field trip in English. Otherwise, it might be a little tricky for them and it might be a little difficult unless they're advanced. So for example, when I did my virtual field trip to the zoo, Hellebrunn, in Munich, I was able to do that all in German because it was my 3rd year and 4th year students. You could use museum websites for ideas, YouTube videos, and recommendations. When you go to pull up your YouTube video, maybe you're looking for a drone video of a specific city to give the kids an overview of what it looks like. Then you can have the kids answer, what's one impression you have of this city? That's my go-to question when I'm not quite sure what I should be asking. What's one impression you have of this city? On the side there in the YouTube website, it gives you recommendations for different videos about the city. That's a cool place to go to get ideas of where to go, or just do a Google image search. So often, for example, like with my field trip to the Black Forest, I did a Google image search and like this really cool image popped up and I was like, what is that? Let me see if I can find an example of what I'm talking about. Here's the Schwarzwald. So this is my virtual field trip example to the Schwarzwald. This is my Google form. Up here, I have my Google form banner, and yes, I changed it. This is my Bitmoji. I love Bitmojis. I've changed it so that I made this. This is my specific banner on every single virtual field trip that I give. I have a tutorial on how to do this as well. I did a presentation on that for Waffle this year. If you're interested in it, I have my email address at the end of the video. You can skip ahead there and send me an email and I'll send you the presentation as well. So that's about using Bitmojis to create classroom cohesion during virtual teaching, and it has a tutorial on how to make these Bitmoji banners up here. So here we go. We've gone to Der Schwarzwald. I always begin with a little bit of information about the town in English. I take this from usually from Wikipedia or from some sort of like Britannica.com. They have those encyclopedia pages about it. So I always begin with what's your name, because when I go to grade this, I can sort it by name, or I can sort it by, you can add what class they're in, you can sort it by class. So I welcome them to the Schwarzwald. I show them where the Schwarzwald is, the location for it. I added this compass rose in German, Nord, Ost, Süd, and West, because that's my first question. Where is it? So they're interpreting the map and they're telling where the Black Forest is in Germany. Der Schwarzwald close up. So I found this picture on Google image search. This isn't the one I was talking about. This isn't the whole reason that we've come over to my virtual field trip, but this is the image that I found. So the Northern Schwarzwald, the Middle Schwarzwald, and Südlicher Southern Schwarzwald Black Forest. I ask questions about the towns also. So getting them another cool byproduct of using maps. They're upping their competency in reading a map. So I'm asking them how many cities are in the Middle Schwarzwald. See, you can have questions in German that you feel like the students will be able to answer and just not do the whole thing in German. Another thing I found through Google image search, which is really cool, is that the city of Rottweil in the Black Forest is famous for Rottweiler dogs. I don't know how many of you have students that have very specific interests. When I ask my students at the beginning of the year, why are you taking German? I had 2 students answer, I'm taking German because I've got a Rottweiler and the dog comes from Germany. I'm like, okay, sure. And so that's why I included a question about Rottweiler. So this is a specific question about one of the answers that can be found. This is a question actually about why are they rubbing the nose of the dog, or which part of the dog is lucky. And so that's, working with facial body parts. You could have also done, why do you think the dog's nose is being rubbed? So there's like open-ended questions you could do. You could do these multiple choice questions. You could have a drop-down question. You could have an ordering question. So here we've got a question about the university and what part of the map that's in. Here's a question about the university there, or the weather there. What are the 2, it's the #1 most sunny and beautiful place in Germany. Here is the question that I found, that I developed by finding on the Google image search a really cool picture. The picture was this, actually. I was like, what the heck is that? It turns out that it is a treetop walkway. The Germans, you can come on here and you can spiral up, walk up to have a good view of the Black Forest. So I thought that was really cool. So my question here has no picture associated with it. I'm varying my questions and answers by including the picture with the answer. So as you're going through and as you're building your virtual field trip, try to vary your different answers there. So this is a vocab question. I'm asking about the Baumwipfelpfad, which is a compound noun, Baum and Wipfel and Pfad. So I'm asking them to look at our online dictionary, what picture most closely is related to that idea of a Baumwipfelpfad. So then, of course, we're talking about a little bit about the traditional dress. I try to do, clothing, nature, something, you know, specific to the region, cuckoo clocks. Also, I try to throw in there, I try to throw food in there quite often, truthfully. So this is linking to the history of it. And then here we've got, of course, Hansel and Gretel with the Grimm fairy tales. So that was 10 questions. And then I ended it up with, do you want to visit there or why? That's always a good way to end. It gives you a lot of insight into your students and where they find interesting. If they like the country a bit more, if they like the city more. Of course, when I talked about the Oktoberfest, you know, it was an event. So did they want to go there more? It's just gauging their interest. Okay, so if we're talking about how we're going to get there, those were my deciding factors. What was your medium going to be? Are you going to use a Google form? Are you going to post a question? Are you going to give a hyperdoc? How are you going to have students answer? And then gather your resources. I do a skeleton kind of virtual field trip first. I plan it out so that I see that I get a good mix of questions. So I plan out, you do about 10 questions. You could do 3, you could do 20, depends. So I plan out 10 questions. I usually start with a map. I make sure to include food, language, traditional clothing, anything interesting I find, and I kind of do a skeleton virtual field trip. Like I lay it out. I do that so that I can see an overview of where we're going and what we're doing before I go back in and add in any pictures and that sort of thing. So I use lots of videos as well. So they'll have to watch a video and then answer a question. Or like I mentioned before, maybe those drone videos are really cool of towns. You can just Google that, the town name and the drone video, and then it pops up and you just say, watch this, you know, watch 3 minutes of this video or 1 minute of this video. What's your first impression of this town? You can go to websites, you can have them linked to dictionaries to look up specific words. I already showed you should vary the types of answers, multiple choice. I use drop-down boxes sometimes, short answer, sometimes long answer. Guided questions, if you're not asking them to look for a specific fact, maybe you want to know what year the university was founded. Make sure that the questions that you're asking are actually important for them to know. I think it's cool that universities in Germany are really old. And the one that I asked a question about, it was founded in the 1400s. I mean, what? That's so cool. I wouldn't ask them a question that wasn't important to me, if that makes sense. The other thing is that I give students the chance to give feedback. When I'm giving reflections at the end of my week, at the end of the module, twice per quarter, I'll ask them about the types of assignments that I'm giving. I ask them, hey, how's the virtual field trip going? Is it fun or is it boring? What are you, do you have any suggestions for Frau on where to go? Do you have any suggestions about the questions? Do you have any suggestions for this? You know, if they answer no, I don't have any suggestions, or IDK, I get a lot of IDK, I don't know. That's fine, because once in a while you will get suggestions that are very helpful. And I find that useful. The other thing I wanted to show you is that you can include answer feedback. So let's see what that looks like. This is my, my Google Drive folder of virtual field trips. You can see here we've been to Munich and Mannheim and Bonn and Frankfurt, Oktoberfest, Berlin, Linz, Köln, Cologne, Zurich, and Wien and Schwarzwald. And then this one down on the bottom here is Essen. Now I'll come back and talk about Essen in a minute because that's really a special case. But if we were to go look at Wien, and that was my last virtual field trip, you can see I actually just started grading Wien today. And I can pull it up with a spreadsheet and see all of my students' answers in one place. So that's what the spreadsheet is right here. But if we were to go look at Wien, you can see that my students, I had 46 students respond. So fill out this virtual field trip. You can see here's a a map. In my last virtual field trip, I like to sometimes refer back to the virtual field trip from before. So this one is Wien. And in the last virtual field trip, which was to Zurich, we talked about the Mercer report, which is the most livable city in the world. And they found out that Vienna is the #1 most livable city for the past 10 years. And so that was kind of my hook for why Vienna. And so this is again asking about where on the map, what part of the country it is in. We're talking about Mozart. So if we talk about this Mozart question, how long did he live there? You can see when I click into it, this is where I can edit it. Here's my answer key. I can click on it so that he lived at that apartment for 4 years. In the answer key, it has a bit more information. Oops. And here's the video. A bit more information on Mozart when he was living there. For example, they were asked to go to the website about the apartment that Mozart lived in. They read that there was a clock there from 1790, and they think that he wrote the music for the clock. And so this is an extension of that question of hearing what the Mozart family would have actually heard when the clock chimed. So it's extending the question and giving them more information. So no matter which way they answered, correct answers or incorrect answers, they still get this extension that says, oh, this is really specific about this, here's the clock, and this is what the Mozart family would have heard. Also in that same vein, we're talking here a bit about Schönbrunn Palace and the zoo, which is the oldest zoo in the world, home to 700 species. They have to go and they have to look at the day ticket. How much does it cost for a 17-year-old student? So if you go to look at the answer key there, the answer key is a map of the zoo. So they can click in and they can see a map of the zoo and learn more about it. Are they required to? No, but it's just an extension. The Lipizzaner horses, the famous dancing horses, why are they so famous? They dance. So once they figure out why they're so famous, then they get a video. They get a video here to see, or they get a video here about why they're famous, and then they get to see how much it costs to go and see one of their performances. By the way, it's like 56 euros. It's a lot. So that's how I expand their knowledge by leaving feedback for them. I think that's pretty important and pretty interesting. So to give answer feedback on why or how or what or something more specific. It's pretty cool. Now, I told you I would tell you a little bit more about this virtual field trip to Essen. Let me open it up. I'll open up a version of what the kids would see, which is coming here. So this week I started my March Music Madness bracket. So I didn't have a lot of time. So actually, this virtual field trip was canceled. I still included it because I do one every single week, but it says, ach nein, your plane was canceled. Mechanical problems. Uh-oh. Hopefully there will be a flight next week, and that's totally okay. You can totally give yourself a break. Don't kill yourself if you decide to make virtual field trips a regular thing like I do. It's totally okay to tell your students, nope, no virtual field trip this week, but it's fun to do it in this way where they can see, nope, I still gave them the map of where Essen was just because I thought it was kind of funny. And my second years are studying food. So the word Essen in German means food, but Essen, lowercase, is also to eat. So I eat food in Essen is an actual sentence in German that I thought was kind of fun. So don't feel bad if you need to cancel your flight, just FYI. So heading back, virtual field trips, back to our presentation here. Good. So Like I said, if you have any questions for me as we're going through, my email is on the last slide of this page, as is a QR code so that you can access this presentation and access any links that I have in the presentation. Next, we're going to talk about my examples and resources. So we've already jumped ahead a little bit to the examples because I've showed you that I have this Google Drive folder here full of German language related virtual field trips, and I'm constantly adding to it too. Like I said, my next one is not to Essen, but instead it is to the country of Liechtenstein. And so I'm constantly adding to this. If you're interested, there is a link to it there. It's actually a link to this one because this is my sharing my copies. So you can see here, Berlin, Bonn, Köln, Mannheim, Linz, Frankfurt, Schwarzwald, München, and Zurich. I didn't include Essen, or the one other one I had from first quarter that was like a fluke. Oh no, your plane was canceled. The pilot is sick, you know? So I didn't include those, but at the end of the presentation, you can get the QR code to come to this, to get the link to go to my virtual field trips if you'd like to make a copy of them. So let me show you an example for another one. You've seen the Schwarzwald. If we were to go to the Oktoberfest, this is what this looks like. Of course, current events, Oktoberfest was canceled this year for the first time in 71 years since World War II. This was very interesting to my students. It doesn't have to be October or actually September to do the Oktoberfest. You can definitely at any point do that. Or any other holiday. You can do Christmas in July. Just make it fun, make a fun thing for it. Make it interesting to the students. So here we're welcoming them to Oktoberfest. It's in Munich. So I've got a question here about the Theresienwiese, and its nickname is the Wiesen, showing them Oktoberfest 2020 compared to 2019. This is current events. Of course, next year, I'm probably going to leave this in because it'll be interesting to them still. But in a few years, if I decide to use this virtual field trip again, it might not be relevant. So I might need to update it. The poster contest I find is really interesting. Some background. I always make sure to tell the students how long the video itself is. So that's really important. When you, also a tip, when you make a copy of this for yourself, the video won't play from here. You have to go into preview mode in order to see it for yourself. It still works. It just isn't playing there. So here's a short answer. Why? According to the video, they have to watch the video. Why did Oktoberfest happen? According to the video, whenever I have a question about the video, I always start with according to the video because I want to make sure that they know that's where to find the answer and not to just Google it. So it tells you in the video, how many times has Oktoberfest been canceled? And they can click here. Of course, when they click, they get answer feedback after they submit. So a little bit of information from Rick Steves, a local legend. He's from Washington State. So how long does Oktoberfest last? Another multiple choice. What 2 types of food are served at Oktoberfest? Beer. Now, here's a question about beer. And this, of course, is also a teacher prerogative. If you don't want to talk about beer, no problem. Or you can be like me and talk about it because it's culturally relevant. But I say drinking age in Germany is 16 students on our GAP trip, our exchange. This is our German exchange, are not allowed to drink any alcohol. This is illegal per state and school rules. Beer at Oktoberfest is expensive anyway. Luckily, they serve cola and lemonade. So still, though, I find it quite interesting to see how much beer costs. So depending on where you what language you teach, it's always interesting to include a question about their currency. So my students find it fascinating that the Germans use commas in their money. describing their money, and they don't have a lot of experience with euros. So I try to include at least once or twice a quarter something with this exchange rate website. xe.com is my favorite. So if a mass of beer costs $11.75, how much does that cost in dollars? So that's also helping them on a real Oktoberfest, or not an Oktoberfest, a real exchange, taking them to Germany. We would practice this. It's an actual practical application that they need to know. If they go without you one year, maybe they go with their families, they need to know how to convert money. Also, because it's fun, they want to know about the rides. We talk about the rides a little bit, about the clothing. This picture was very exciting for me to find because I focus a lot in my classes about diversity. I want to make sure that the German or the students know that there are Afro-Deutsche. I find it very important. Representation is important. While I might not have any students of color in my classes, Enumclaw is a very white place. I think it's important for them to be exposed to more. And so it's important to me to find pictures. And this picture, it does my heart good. Oh my goodness. Not only a beautiful woman of color, but also she's wearing Trachten. That's lederhosen. She's not wearing a dress, and you don't have to wear a dress anymore. That is awesome. At Oktoberfest, if you're a woman, you can wear lederhosen. I find that very important to explain. And so this was one of my very favorite parts of any virtual field trip. And then, of course, Oktoberfest wouldn't be Oktoberfest if we didn't talk about the lost and found and the weirdest things that people lose, like dentures or, anything that's just weird things. But would you like to go to Oktoberfest? Sometimes I also add in this question, what's one question you still have about the place and or event and or what have you, because you can pull that up on the, when you go to look at that spreadsheet afterwards. If I were to go to this spreadsheet, so here you can see the spreadsheet opens up right here. It creates a spreadsheet. You can see the answers really clearly, and boom, you have a list of questions that you can then address with your class that they have. One last thing I want to show you, I think I'll show you Zurich. So information about Zurich. Where is Zurich? Welcome to Switzerland. Of course, there's multiple languages in Switzerland. So this question is about the neighbors of Switzerland and what language do you think might be spoken in Zurich given its geographical location. So this is a question, a guided question, asking them to interpret. Yeah, do they speak German in France? Do they speak French in Germany? No, Zurich's closer to Germany, so they probably speak German there. So this is an interpretation of a map. So it says here, national capital is a star, Bern. A lot of my students will just automatically assume that Zurich is the capital because it's big, I don't know, but Bern is actually the capital. Here we're talking about the Mercer report, the most livable city. I just wanted to point out that you can find really strange things to talk about. For example, I had no idea. I've been to Zurich a number of times, and I didn't know about the No-Show Museum. It's a museum dedicated to nothing. This is the kind of thing that students like to learn about. And really, they don't even have to go to the website in order to be able to answer this question. But they need to give their opinion. Do you want to visit this museum? Why or why not? It's fascinating to me. Would I pay money to go there? Good question. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Here's a question about sports. I have students that are interested in sports. I'm trying to get a whole umbrella, like a whole spectrum of students interested in these virtual field trips. So here is about the ZSC Lions, the ZSC Lions. Here's their website. You can visit it. What sport is it? So pretty easy to figure out. By the way, it's hockey. The Swiss love hockey. Fascinating. And here's Rösti. question about Risti, a question about the trains. This is a video or an article. The extension is a video on one day in Zurich, Zurich's train station. It's a time-lapse video, pretty cool. Here's a question about transportation and bikes. Look how many Swiss people bike to the train station to take public transportation to work. Fascinating. But this question isn't about bikes. I've molded this question about bikes to be actually about Swiss German, the Swiss German language. How do you say bicycle in Swiss German? My students know Fahrrad. They would think, German, Fahrrad. But in Swiss German, it's not Fahrrad, it's a Velo. So you've got to be mixing in all kinds of things at once. And another look at this phrase book, which word is your favorite? I found a very interesting article also about a Neanderthal person that they dug up in Switzerland. I didn't include it because I'm already at 12 questions here, but that's the kind of thing that I find interesting. So we've looked at Vienna. If you're interested in looking at there we go, at the rest of my virtual field trips, lots of interesting ones: Mannheim, Linz, Austria, Frankfurt, Cologne. This one has to do a bit with the carnival. But since we first did this one back in first quarter, I didn't make it completely about Carnival. If you're interested in my examples, the link is here in my Google Drive folder. So there's the link. I've added a link to Curriculum Castle. This is a Google Earth field trip, not a Google Tour Creator field trip, but this is just using Google Earth. It's from Curriculum Castle. A few ideas on how to use Google Earth, if you're interested in that. Another fun one is from Ditch That Textbook. That's giving you ideas on 20 virtual field trips. Now, these are no prep for you, which means that you do not have to use a Google form. They are already prepped and you would just lead the kids through it together. My computer is having a hard time pulling that up. But basically the ideas are like visiting a zoo, visiting NASA, and all of that kind of stuff is linked here. I do have to say that that kind of thing is cool to bring into your foreign language instruction. You can just do it in English. There's nothing wrong with that. And then expand it to get the kids more vocabulary, or to have them start thinking about something maybe connected back to your target language or back to your target country. Here's virtual field trips. This is from We Are Teachers. That's a helpful website. You can see here they're showcasing this is to an aquarium, a specific aquarium, but there's over 25 different ideas here, which is pretty cool. This one's specifically for French, France without the flights. And then this one's specifically for Spanish, 10 authentic Spanish resources for your virtual tours. I find that really fascinating. Hopefully you guys also find virtual field trips really interesting as well. I have to say, and I'm not lying, even though it's kind of a pain in the butt to make these virtual field trips, now that I have a stockpile of them, it's actually super fun to make them because I learn so much too, and I get to flex a little bit of my creativity. I get to think in a new and different way. I get to put it together like a piece of puzzle, like a puzzle pieces, fitting it together to make the virtual field trip interesting, you know, varying my different answers and finding different resources, videos, websites, recipes, first person narratives, this kind of thing, to make it as interesting as possible to the students. And of course, it doesn't have to be to a city. It can be an idea. It can be an event. It can be something as interesting as a school system. So basically, it's completely up to you which way that you'd like to head in. I would love to hear from you if you have done virtual field trips. If you have any tips for me, I know I'm not the expert in this. If you have any tips for me, please drop me an email. This is my school email. It's Alicia_Holmquist. So just FYI, if I were to take Oh, Entschuldigung, my goodness. If I were to take this underlining away, you would still be able to see that it is underscore. There we go. Alicia underscore Holmquist at enumclaw.wednet.edu. That's my email address. Feel free to drop me a line if you enjoyed the presentation or if you have any questions or if there's anything at all that I can help you with. I feel very lucky to have a good foreign language group of friends and people that I can exchange materials with. I don't know about you, I'm completely anti, and I hope this doesn't offend you, but I'm completely anti teachers pay teachers. I want to give out as much as I get back, and so I am happy sharing with you as much as possible. If you are interested, the QR code is here. If you haven't used a QR code before, you can just get your cell phone, pull up, if you have an iPhone, you can pull up your camera and just hover it, and it will take you to the website for my presentation, or you can always email it to me and I will send it to you if you don't want to use the QR code. Either way. But now you have my name and you have my email address. Feel free, please, to contact me anytime. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you enjoyed my presentation on virtual field trips. Thank you.